Hello everybody and welcome back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Anno Domini deception, because I think this dating system, which we will look into, I think it is one of the many tools that's been used to potentially hide an apocalypse. And I'll explain why I think that as we go along. But Anno Domini, it's just a Latin term which means in the year of the Lord, or I've heard people say in the year of our Lord, referring to the birth of Jesus Christ. So it starts at the year 1. There is no 0 in this dating system. Just a little background on that. But when did this dating system actually come into play? Because if you look into it, you will find that there are references to it being devised in the 6th century. And then there are also references that say that it was beginning to be more widely used in the 9th century AD. But upon further research, you find that usage of this AD dating system, Anno Domini, only gradually became more common in Europe from the 11th to the 14th centuries. So it's only after the fact that all of these sites that are attributed to the first millennium, it's only after the fact that they've all been dated using this system. So it just leaves the door open potentially to deception. And we're going to get into that here in a second. But the first appearance of coins that are using this AD dating system, I guess the first coins are these Danish coins from 1274. Now, there's a great researcher who, unfortunately he's passed away, but he's done a lot of great research on this subject, Gunnar Heinzen, and he just mentions in one of his articles that there is no place in the first millennium AD where historians or chronologists would have kept a complete record of the years AD 1 to 1000. Yet in Europe alone, you have 30 to 40,000 archaeological sites from the first millennium AD. So all these sites, they're just assigned these dates from AD 1 to 1000. But within that, there could be a lot of misrepresentation of these dates, because when these sites were still active, they didn't assign themselves these dates. So we really don't know. And I think this is just one of the tools that has been used to hide the apocalypse that I think actually took out the Roman Empire, as well as a lot of these other sites. So how do you hide an apocalypse? Well, I think one of the means is by dating them to different points in the timeline of the first millennium, because I think this apocalypse happened in the first millennium, and it's the reason why Rome is in such a sorry state that it is in. A lot of the destruction that we see in Rome is actually attributed to the destruction of the aqueducts, which does make some sense, but I think it's actually because of this apocalyptic event. But actually, greenery remains scarce up to the 1700s. Rome's most characteristic trees are not actually even originally Roman. So whatever happened did a number on Rome. But if you look throughout Europe, you're going to find just so many sites that are Roman, buried, rediscovered at a later point. This particular site, Vienne, France, just south of Lyon, France, I think it was in 2017 where archaeologists discovered a little Pompeii in France. They just mentioned how this site was abandoned after a fire.
The area was part of the Roman Empire for 3 centuries until its inhabitants fled due to multiple fires. Ironically, it is these fires that have kept this site in such good condition.
Just like so many sites across Europe, this is just another photo. And just another site in Arles, France. This particular site was discovered in the 1980s. Archaeologists discovered a 2nd century AD Roman residential neighborhood buried underneath this site they were looking at. So it's just the same pattern. And when you actually look at Northern Europe, that's when you get into the Vikings. And this is where this Anno Domini deception, I think, kicks in. Because if you have all these sites buried all throughout Europe, including Northern Europe, I think people would start asking questions. But what I think has happened is they've taken the Vikings and they have put them later in the timeline, 8th through 11th centuries. even though they probably existed at the same time as the Roman Empire of the 2nd and 3rd centuries, and they experienced the same destructive event. But it's only at a later point the history was rewritten, and these different empires or groups of people were separated, moved to different locations in the timeline. In just a brief summary, what are some of the physical proofs of that? Well, a lot of these Viking sites are buried under layers of this dark earth, Nordic dark earth, and it can be up to 1 to 3 feet. And a lot of these Roman sites that are buried are also buried under layers of this dark earth, including in many sites throughout England as well. So that's one similarity. Second is the technology that the Vikings had. A lot of their ships, which we're told are dated to the 8th, 9th centuries, they look eerily similar to Roman ships of the same type from the 1st and 2nd century, and just a different type of ship here. The Roman square sail trading vessel compared to the Viking square sail trading vessel. Again, even though they're separated by, in some cases, 700 years, very similar. And the idea is that they were in contact with each other. And that's why they have the same technologies. They're buried similar, this dark earth, which I think was caused when things were burnt up. And also they find a lot of these Roman coins from the 2nd, 3rd century mixed in with these Viking artifacts. And a lot of these coins are low value Roman coins as well. So why are these coins from the 2nd century showing up in Viking sites from the 8th, 9th, 10th centuries? They wouldn't have just continued to pass these down throughout the centuries, is the theory. So what's being said is that these different groups of people were contemporary with each other. And that's why you have these coins showing up in abundance. So that's the basic view, and this is just an example of how the Anno Domini system, which was implemented after the fact, our controllers have gone in and moved different people groups to different points in the timeline using this dating system. Now, what happened after this apocalypse? That is what I've been looking into, because we're told that you have the rise of the monasteries, the rise of monasticism. And I'm looking into this because it's an interesting aspect of this whole subject, the rise and fall of the monastery. So I will continue to look into that. But then we're told after the Dark Ages, we have the Renaissance. And generally the Renaissance is described as taking place from the 13 to the 1600s. Well, what's happening during the 13 to the 1600s? The rediscovery of these classical texts, these Roman and Greek texts are being found throughout monasteries and religious institutions. So I think they were planted and were given this whole new narrative of the Roman Empire. And that's how you possibly recreate history, in my opinion. Now, I did want to mention, moving slightly to a different subject, there's just so many of these Arabic coins, which I've mentioned, others have mentioned, but they're all scattered throughout Northern Europe and even Northwest Russia, when Viking kings and queens ruled medieval Russia. So it's interesting, the Vikings, their presence in Northwest Russia as well. And also, I just wanted to touch on, they found at some of these Viking sites, quote, Viking sites in Northwest Russia, like Novgorod, they found more of these wooden roads and buildings, and they found just the depth of some of these roads. It's pretty insane. Here's just another view. The excavators discovered that the old city was buried under up to 8 meters, 25 feet of damp clay. So I'm going to have to take a look at these wooden roads again, because I had a video called Reset Roads where I talked about more recent examples of these, but I'm going to have to go back to that and take a look. Now, this Anno Domini system is just one of the many tools that's been used to hide the fact that all these sites exhibit similar properties. And again, that's just my view, but I think I'll leave it here for today. I do want to give a big shout out to all my patrons. Really appreciate all your help and support, and I thank you very much. So with that being said, until next time, take care. Bye.